LTB hearings are taking up to 14, 16, 18 months to happen. Yes, that is what's happening, my friends. And we're going to talk to our good friend and paralegal, Bita Lisi, right after this. As promised, yes, my friends, here we are with our favorite Toronto area or Ontario paralegal, Bita Lisi. How are you this morning?
I'm well, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, excellent. And you all, here's what I love. Somebody with tremendous amount of experience loves to give back to their community, our community. And there's always a unique story, especially when you're a landlord and especially when frustrated landlords come to you, because your office specializes in helping landlords. What do you got in store for us today, Bita?
Well, this morning we had a very interesting a hearing that I attended, just observing a colleague of mine on an application for a landlord's own use. The landlord actually has dire need for this property to be returned back to him, and the tenant has raised a whole slew of things like, the gas has been shut off by Enbridge and the furnace is no longer working and all of these issues. And he's saying that these are the reasons as to why the landlord has served this application for his own use. And it already took us 14 months to get here, 14 months, 4 adjournments. And unfortunately, the board is leaning more on the side of the tenant, saying that the reason why, or they're determining that a reason why the landlord served this notice is so that he can basically ignore his maintenance obligations and just end the tenancy.
Right.
So it's as sad as it is. Unfortunately, the matter may be dismissed, but my colleague of mine is still working on it. I can hear him in the other room.
Oh, currently, right now, as we speak.
Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't get dismissed, but
yeah. And there are, yes, there are times when, landlords feel they want their unit back because they want to increase the rent or they want to sell it or they do things like that. And yeah, we'll call it, there's some bad apples out there. But in this case, the owner genuinely needs that unit, right? And it creates, this is where it creates havoc for individuals like that. And tenants will, especially smart tenants, and they are out there, they'll use everything that they possibly can, and they know that the favor is always in their corner type thing, isn't it?
It's sad because there are some genuine landlords out there that actually require the property, that they can't even afford to rent for $5,000 or $6,000 a month. So why would they have to resort to renting when they are a landlord and they can move back into their property?
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So over the last, over the last several videos that you and I've done together, we've talked about, the increase in investment from the Ontario government into the LTB. And these are all good things. And sometimes they come with frustration, as we talked about, I believe, on our last video, and who they're hiring as adjudicators. But one of the positives, in a sense, is the fact that when I submit an application, or you submit, I should say, an application against our tenant, things are happening a little bit quicker. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Let's talk about that. So we're talking about the timing, how long it takes to get to the board, or how long it takes to receive a notice of hearing. So the last time we talked about the government of Ontario injecting $6.5 million into the Landlord and Tenant Board by hiring new adjudicators. Well, we're just starting to feel the benefits of that, quote unquote. And one of the benefits is that hearings are being scheduled quicker. It doesn't mean, let me just clarify, because it doesn't mean that your matter will get in front of the board quicker. No, it just means if you file an application with the board, the receiving end, which is the board, will schedule your matter instead of in the next 3 months, they'll schedule it in a month. But your matter will still be scheduled for 7 to 8 months down the line, down
I
the
see.
road, I would say. Does
I
that
see.
make
So what?
sense?
Yeah. So what you're saying is, if I or you submitted an application against the tenant, uh, up to this point, we weren't getting any response back for several months. At least now we're
You
getting a
got it.
response back within 3-4 weeks or what have you,
Correct.
for that scheduled matter to be heard, later in the fall or 6 or 8 months down the road. So so we are seeing some progress.
Yeah, if you call
You-
it progress.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Now it's just a matter of all those matters being heard and caught up. And prior to COVID, do you recall, prior to COVID and everything like that? So typically a matter to be heard in front of the LTB or in front of adjudicator was what, 3 to 4 months, around there on the conservative side?
Around there.
Yeah.
At the most, 5 months. And that was a long time
Yeah.
back then. Now, I mean, 7 to 8 months if you're lucky to receive a notice of hearing.
Yeah.
But Gary, remember, just because you receive that initial notice of hearing doesn't mean your matter is going to be heard. Many landlords have it in their head that I received the notice of hearing, my matter will be heard, I will get an eviction. No, right? It's not a guarantee because anything can happen. There could be a scheduling overload where the board schedules 100 matters to be heard in 3 hours. And we know that just by the sounds of it, that's impossible. And as a result, those matters that are not heard will be rescheduled. Or the adjudicator can forget to attend, which has happened many, many times in the past. Or there could be technical difficulties, there could be many delays, I would say. Basically, if the board doesn't get to your matter will be rescheduled. And depending on when it's going to be rescheduled, your matter will be heard. Sometimes it's rescheduled and your matter is heard in 1 or 2 months. Other times it's rescheduled and you'll be lucky if your matter's heard in the next 8 or 9 months.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
Right?
And
It's like rolling the dice.
And I know we mentioned this in the past, but the importance of the accuracy of the paperwork, how it's delivered. Talk to us a little bit about that.
It's so important, Gary, that the paperwork be correct. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. I mean, any minor issue, and you are risking the adjudicator dismissing the application.
Yeah.
Because remember, these are legal documents. The notices are legal notices. You're applying to legally, forcefully evict someone from their property, from the property, I would say. So your notices have to be correct. Applications, however, can be amended at the board if there are any errors. So if you miss something on an application, yes, you can amend it. But if you miss something on a notice, you have to serve a whole new notice.
Yeah.
Right? And can I, you know what, let me just clarify the difference between a notice and an application, because they're two separate things. A notice, for example, Gary, if you're the tenant and you've stopped paying rent, I will serve you with a notice for non-payment of rent. So I'm putting you on notice, Gary, you haven't paid the rent, pay up in 14 days. That's a notice. Or I'll serve you notice because I've sold the property and the buyer requires possession. That's a new notice. That's another notice. Or I'll serve you notice because you've been persistently late on your rent 8 out of 12 months in the past year. That's another notice. These notices are then filed with the Landlord and Tenant Board by way of an application. So if there's an error in the application, that can be amended because I'm not serving you that application. Right? That application's only for the board, but I'm serving you with a notice. So if I'm going to make any changes, guess what? I have to serve you with a new notice.
Interesting. Yeah.
Makes sense?
That's good clarity.
Yeah.
And there's an order of events that has to happen, right?
You got it.
And if you're confused like that, with that, that's when you need to be reaching out to professionals like Bita and her team, because trust me, I've been there in sitting in front of other people's matters and things aren't quite lining up the way that you just explained it. And sure enough, the adjudicator, dismisses it right
Tosses
away.
it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, right away. And you know, now we do things a little bit differently, and a lot of the matters are heard virtually. Is that still happening? And is that still correct? Talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit about that and that experience.
Yeah, the matters are being heard virtually unless a tenant puts an accommodation request for an in-person hearing. That request has to be submitted to the board prior to the hearing, and it has to be granted by the board.
Right, right,
Okay, but I've yet to see a tenant put forward a request for an in-person
right.
accommodation.
Do you think we'll ever get back to in-person matters being heard on an ongoing basis,
I
or
I don't think so.
you don't think so?
You
Yeah,
know, it's so much more convenient
yeah,
for everyone,
yeah,
right? You're not sitting in the 5 a.m. traffic. The tenants don't have to, leave their homes in the middle of winter. They don't have to take the transit.
yeah.
Delays on the TTC. I mean, it's much more convenient that way.
Absolutely, and all those other things, like and giving up perhaps a day of work and everything else that goes along with that, and the
Yeah.
ripple effect from that perspective. Now, when you have your matter scheduled, is it a specific time in the day, or are you getting a time slot?
So we have a time slot.
Yeah,
Okay. So for example, the board arranges hearings either at 9 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
right.
So there's a morning time slot and an afternoon time slot. If the 9 o'clock for the 9 o'clock time slot, that can run up until 12 or 12:30, or it can run for the entire day till about 4 or 5.
Right.
But the afternoon time slot will only run between 1 to 4 or 1 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a preference? You'd rather the morning because most likely it'll get heard?
Well, that's not even a guarantee, but I
Okay.
love the mornings
Yeah.
because I'm a morning person.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
I'm up very early in the morning.
Nice, nice, nice. That's good. That's good. And it is an interesting perspective. And when you're on the virtual piece of it, is it just are you the people that are in attendance? Is it just the people that are in attendance that are on this specific matter, or do you get to hear other cases and so forth?
It's everybody.
Yeah.
You can hear their cases. Yeah. Even if you want to attend as an observer, you would just mute yourself and shut off your camera, and the board will let you observe. Remember, these are all public hearings.
That's right.
So anyone can attend. I mean, if you're disruptive, they'll kick you out of the hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And I
But
bring
anyone
that
can
up,
attend.
and I bet some of your colleagues will find this as well. I bring that up because I've learned some of my best lessons observing, and I'm sure your team, and then you coach your team to do the same.
Yes.
And right, because there's so many lessons along the way that perhaps the adjudicator says something, or a tenant is using this angle, landlord's using this angle, and you can see it differently because you're observing, and perhaps you see it even differently than that. But man, what a great learning environment! And I will
It
say
really
this.
is.
I'll say this too. Sometimes you can't buy entertainment like that, right?
Yes.
Bita
And
knows what I'm talking
not,
about.
not all cases are winnable.
That's right.
I tell my
Yeah.
team that all the time. We're not going to win everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
it can be, and I'll tell you this, it can be very the word escapes me, intimidating if you are, as a landlord, are there to represent yourself. It can be very intimidating, especially if you've not done it before. And that's why we team up with great paralegals and companies and resources like Bita and your team. You don't want to be in there for the first time ever and someone's not paid you rent and giving you a hard time when it's your most likely biggest or second biggest asset that you own. You, somebody that goes there every day, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. You use a pro for everything, right?
Yeah.
You want to buy a house, use a realtor.
Yeah.
You want to fix your teeth, go to a dentist, right? You want heart surgery, go see a surgeon, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Don't do it yourself.
That's
because
it.
you don't know. The public doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? And what seems easy is not easy. It's easy because we make it look easy. It's easy because we have 20 years of experience behind us. We've made all those errors. We've fallen thousands of times, right? So we know what to do and what not to do. We know the tricks.
That's right. That's right. And also with that, because you're representing so many different landlords and you're in front of the adjudicators all the time, there's becomes a commonality. They get to recognize you and they know that, okay,
Yeah.
this is Stonegate, and they have a reputation, as opposed to just Gare the landlord showing
Yeah.
up and they don't know me from the next person. So there's a great reputation within the industry as well with your firm, and that's why we bring you on videos like this. So with that said, how do people get a hold of you? What do they need to do?
The best way to get a hold of us, check out our website. You can book a call on our website, stonegatelegalservices.ca. Great information on the website. Send us an email if you have any questions, info@stonegatelegalservices.ca. That's the best way to get a hold of me, because I'm either on hearings, or I'm on trainings, or I'm on seminars like this one. Or you can call our office, 416-937-2766. Our contact information is also, again, on our website. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We post a couple times a week, always with a post and a video, educating you on what's going on with the realm of landlords and tenants. So check us out at Stonegate Legal Services on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, I said this on the last video. Your Instagram page is phenomenal. So if you're a landlord there, aspiring landlord wanting to learn more, check out the Instagram page. It's phenomenal. Good stuff. Well, there you have it, my friends. That's another video with Stonegate and Bita, and we're so excited to have her on. So for her, we'll see everybody on the next video. Bye for now.